So, welcome to the Elephant Adventure, the Urban Tree Festival sessions. So, there's a printout handout, I guess you could say, for the workshop in the chat if you want to download that. And if you have a problem, Andrew will be able to send it to you via the email. Now, we don't have a lot of time, so, and it's not like there's a lot to cover. It's a pretty basic structure. But I also do want to sort of target a few of what your interests are in this particular workshop, which I think is great. The storytelling, the location-based media, so on and so forth. So basically, this is the adventure. This is the challenge in itself. Is actually called the World's End Elephant Challenge, but Andrew informed me that there is a World's End in London, so we decided to change the title up a bit. But so this challenge is I'm inviting you to create a 3 to 4 minute audio story that contemplates the emotional dimension of a global catastrophe, i.e., a viral pandemic. In this case, while it explores a meaningful space for nature in our everyday lives. So this, I'm going to screen share because oh no, I won't show you that yet. So it'll be geolocated onto the World's End Elephant Collaborative map, and the stories will be recorded using simply your cell phone. So there's no tech necessary except, of course, for your cell phone. So the challenge is this. It's simple. And I believe it's also it's trying to sort of scratch that universal itch that I think we're all feeling right now, that you've not seen anyone in quite some time. You're isolated. There's this looming sense of despair. You never know which way it's going to go. One day it's great, the other day it's like, oh, this isn't good at all. You decide to, so we tweaked it for the Urban Tree Festival, that you decided to go find a tree, to one of your favorite trees wherever you are, to be able to find some peace of mind. And there, as you're nearing your tree, you see that there's an elephant. Who seems to be quite out of place, munching on your tree. And this elephant, of course, is quite friendly, and he or she befriends you in some sort of fashion. And throughout this process, by the end of the story, the elephant leaves and you are left feeling hopeful. So that's the narrative arc of the story. Now, how you're going to color this particular arc is up to you. So I'm just going to let that sort of simmer, I guess, in your creative back burners. And while I just talk a little bit about location-based storytelling, and this may help sort of the creative process. Now, ideally, what I would like, I'm going to show you the map first off, just to give you a sense of the way that this would work. So now that you're all in different locations, it's not going to be the same tour, I guess, of London trees, but we are able, can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay. So this right here is a program. It's a platform that I use called CGeoMap, and I've done a couple of different location-based media projects with this, and it's very friendly. It's very, it's great, in fact. So what I would like to do is populate a map, this particular map, with these little icons where you will see an image of whatever tree you choose, and the audio will be down below. So online, yeah, so when you see this, there's like the desktop version is basically this. This is what you end up seeing when you click on the link that's on the activity workshop description. But there's also a cell phone version of it that you click on the same link. And basically, as you approach this particular area, wherever this marker is, the audio just triggers and it turns on, and then you start to hear the story. So, so this platform is really great for doing a wide variety of things, doing these tours where you just sort of stumble upon things, stumble upon different stories, stumble upon different pieces of audio. So we're going to have to, because you're all in different places, I think that we're going to change this up a bit, but I'll get to that in a sec. So, okay. So as you'll see on this sheet, I have some tips on what to do once you're in this, once you find your tree, to sit and observe just what's happening, what's going on, open up your senses to what's around you, begin whatever creative process you have. And then whatever that's going to turn into, whether you record it there, whether you write and record it, whatever the case may be. And then the important thing is that wherever you are, I need your GPS locations. And so in the booklet that it's not a booklet, it's 5 pages, but still for a workshop printout, I think it's quite long. But at the back of it, there's ways to get Google Maps and Apple Maps, ways to get the GPS location from those two different types of apps. So you can use the app itself to find out where you are. And then that's information that you will send to me, right? Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about producing the audio. You have cell phone recorders. I'm sure most of you have used them. I do ask you that they're in WAV format, not MP3, because I can I can, if there's little hiccups in it or something like that, I can edit these things a little bit. So yeah, but what I would like to do is
Sorry,
explore.
can I
Oh,
just interrupt you, David? Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Maggie's saying there's nothing in the chat. Is that still the case, Maggie? If you oh, we can't hear you, Maggie. You're on mute.
Sorry, sorry, Andrew. David, there doesn't appear to be any handout link in the chat yet.
Oh, is anybody else having that problem?
Okay, it's a file.
Okay, I can send
Yeah, if you do it again,
again.
it might have needs to be done again, perhaps because we started the recording and that might have kicked it off. I don't know.
Oh, maybe, eh? Yeah, UTF. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so it should be there.
Any
I mean, even if you don't have it, you will get it. And yeah, yeah. Okay, so I would like to talk a bit about my understanding of storytelling and how I've gotten to doing these types of projects, these location-based projects. Now, my background is in traditional oral storytelling, getting up in front of crowds and telling them stories. And I'm very fond of regional folk tales, just even that idea that a specific region has its own, yeah, that it has its own particular um, set of stories. And the reason why that's important for me is that I really believe um, that a story has a territory in itself, that if you can tell that story well, you give people a sense of where that story originated. And it's that type of approach that I bring into the particular work that I do. So yeah, I mean, as we know, stories have beginning, they have middles, they have ends, which sometimes we forget. We forget that sometimes the story needs an ending or it needs an actual beginning. And then usually there's a problem. And that problem is the purpose of the story, right? The pursuit to overcome that problem is the purpose of the story. So, and then that's where the tension is created. And the reason why I'm saying this is not to say that you don't already know this, but it's just to remind you that, like, because we're doing such small scale, small stories, we really need to cut to the chase right away. These are only 3-minute stories, 3 to 4 minute stories, right? So now when we get to place-based storytelling, it's obviously we use the same storytelling rules and the same storytelling skills. But there's a couple of different things that we need to consider. Now, the reason being is that, sure, there's the setting to a story. That makes an awful lot of sense. Usually all good stories have a setting. But usually we think of good stories as not necessarily being able that they're universal in such a way that you can lift them up and you can put them into a different place and they will still resonate in such ways. Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, I watched an Othello play that was based in World War II, so in the Middle East. So it was lifted up. It was completely just, thrown somewhere else in a different time and place, right? And that's definitely a virtue of good storytelling, right? And it's not to say that we're not doing virtuous storytelling. We're just going about it a little bit differently, because the aim, at least for me, for location-based storytelling is to really to give someone a different understanding of a place that they may go to every day. They may walk past this particular space, but you may see something a little bit different. And that's something that you can put inside of your story, right? So it really is about showing the listener something that they may not readily perceive already. And the way in which we go about thinking about this um, is we think about how when we use location-based media, there's actually two audiences that we're writing for, and this is where things get a bit challenging. But this is also where I think when we contemplate these two audiences, this is where the charm of the location-based work really comes out. So we have two. We have the remote user, which is the person accessing these stories from their own space, right? Um, from their own environment and wherever they are in the world, and they're able to hear this story. And so we need to find a way to be able to reach them and relate to them, right? So I think of storytelling in a way as like sort of like a primordial information technology, that we can actually achieve things technological when we tell a story. And so I like to think that, a good story is sort of like a teleportation device, right? Where we can like lift somebody up and bring them to this particular location. And then, of course, we always want to find a way to be able to lift them back up, bring them back to their place, and have them grow in some sort of fashion. This is ideally, as storytellers, what we're trying to do. Um, Now that's for the remote listener, right? To be able to lift them up, bring them to where you are, and then safely bring them back. Then there's the local user, right? The person who's using the GPS version component of it with their cell phone. They see this icon, they walk to this park, and then it's a park that maybe they see every single day, or maybe it's a new park that they've never seen before. Um, so they go to this park, and then they see this icon pop up, and then they can listen to this piece of audio. Now, this
Hey,
is
hello, sorry, David. Are you expecting people to be seeing your screen? Because they're not. You're not.
no.
I
I'm
beg your
just
pardon. Okay, I was just saying you
yeah.
said see this icon, and I was suddenly thinking, oh, they're not seeing your screen. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I just to see an icon on your
Please.
cell phone screen and be able to access content directly from that. Um, yeah, so this local user, right? It's We need to think about how we are going to, in a way, show this listener a different perspective of the area. Now, I like to think, when I write grants and so on and so forth, I like to use the language of technology, technological innovation when talking about storytelling. So I think about how like a story can actually, like when we're listening to it, and we are actively physically engaged in a physical surrounding, that this story can in fact augment our understanding of our surroundings, right? It's sort of like virtual reality or augmented reality through a story, right? And not necessarily through some, technological doohickey. I mean, obviously the cell phone is necessary, but that's not really where it's centered. Yeah, so so this is what we're doing. We're writing for both of these audiences. And so how do we give a listener a different perspective of the same place? And how do we do this? We show them this particular place through a different lens, right? And so first and foremost, um, your lens is your perspective right then and there. It's as easy as that, right? It's sort of like, how to walk in somebody else's shoes. Try to show them your experience of what you are sensing at this particular time in this story. But there's other ways that you can sort of enhance this perspective or color your perspective. You can do it through using biology. That's a big, that's what I do. I also use the filter of like radio comedy, old fashioned radio comedy, and biology are sort of like my two lenses that I sort of put over top of each other. Um, there's sociology, there's social justice, there's poetry, there is a wide variety of different ways that you can articulate this story to give us your unique perspective of this location. So in a way, it's also to engage the senses, right? Challenge the listener to be able to look around. That's a great thing to do as well. But ideally, what you're doing is you are taking them to a tree. You are um, and then you're asking them, right, to imagine that there's this elephant there. And so it's that leap from the real physical location into the imagined world while you're standing in that same place. That is really what I find really makes location-based media, location-based storytelling really interesting, because yeah, like I've sat there and I've listened to some really great story walks where I'm just like locked in this world that is completely surreal. It's just not there, but I'm so captivated by it. And I must look like this fool sitting on this park bench, just like staring around. But it's like that's the type of experience that you can offer someone. Um, and it's a wonderful, it really is like a wonderful experience as a listener. So yeah. So maybe I'll just sort of open it up to you guys. Like, what are ways that we would be able um to relate to our listener in our story, to sort of give them a sense of place, of location, of where we are at and where we want to take them. I don't know if anybody has any ideas. Should I just call on you? Sure, Christina, why don't you tell me something? What are you thinking about when I mentioned that there's two audiences that you are using in location-based media?
Um, I must admit, this is a whole new idea for me, and I think it sounds really interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really grasped this was what this was, but it sounds great. It sounds amazing because often, yeah, I've got a maybe overactive or ridiculous imagination, and often I just go on a walk and I kind of go through these things, but they're just in my head. So that yeah, I think it's really cool that you could go to you could like make a 3-minute almost like a bubble that people can tap into and just be immersed in this other, as you say, crazy idea mini story world out of their life. Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely. And you can do this too. This is the whole point of this, right? Yeah, I don't know, Teresa, what do you think of your impressions so far?
Sorry. Well, I'm thinking that I'm thinking of talking to my mother about the tree I have in mind, which is in just close to Clapham Common, and having conversation with her on the phone and recording that and talking about the importance of that tree. What those trees were like when we were living there, and so it's I'm kind of thinking about the elephant, and how does the elephant play in our conversation together. So I won't be able to do ambient sound because I'm not in London at the moment. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you don't have
Maybe
to
also
rely
looking
on.
up maybe online. Maybe getting some sound. I know that there's different places where we can get sound of traffic and sound of trees rustling and things like that.
Yeah, I don't even think you need to necessarily worry about ambient sound.
No.
Keep in mind, well, your cell phone speaker is not that um, it's not that great. It's good for voice, right? It's good for voice messages. And I think maybe to get you thinking about it, like it could also be, say, like a journal entry, say, at one point in time you were at this tree, and then you could be telling us this story as some sort of journal entry, right? So you could write it as though, like captain's log, start date, 2020 sort of thing. and then it sort of, that might help to sort of fill in, um, yeah, how about your, like, why you're bringing the elephant in this story to begin with, right? Um, yeah, but that's interesting. I never thought about bringing another voice in, but I think that's great.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
I also really liked what you said about really thinking about engaging the senses and just having a kind of a moment. I'm not sure how I would do this, but I liked what you said, where we experience that tree or experience that space, and in that immediacy also bring that in. It doesn't have to be just a kind of an intellectual exercise, but a kind of a very sensory kind of experience. I like what you said about that.
I think that is, for me, that's the appeal, because it's not to say I don't want to go and learn, say, like an academic perspective on, I don't know, thinking about like urban forestry, for instance. That's a very important thing, and I think that's great. Um, but whether or not I want to be told a story about it, that's the other question, right? And um, so, how do we find, say, a way to take, um, yeah, to take like what could otherwise be not so interesting, like policy, say, thinking about policy or something like that, and how do we turn that into a story, right? How do we take that lens that we want to show the importance of, say, like urban forestry, right? And the policy that is, say, present in our particular city. How do we turn that in, or how do we make that fuel for our storytelling, I guess, right? Yeah, so I guess that's it. I'm just trying to inspire like prompts or prompt you to be thinking about this particular location that you have in mind, and to really harness it in some way, and to make it speak. What about you, Martha? What are you thinking?
It was quite interesting you mentioning the idea of policies, because something I've been thinking about recently is the plants growing in the pavement. I actually I'm studying French, but I did an art project on the pavement plants, and I just think that's quite an interesting idea, whether there'd be sort of trees that had grown out of these pavement plants, because obviously I mean, when they're little plants, they're sort of ignored, but I wonder if there's something that has accidentally been allowed to grow into a whole tree sort of in the pavement.
Interesting.
But yeah, and sorry, the link to policy was the fact that a lot of plants that are growing in the pavement have been being sprayed with pesticides. And that's actually quite dangerous to not just the plants, but the whole ecosystem. So yeah, just
So any thoughts how you could incorporate an elephant into that?
yeah, that's the difficult thing. I don't know. I was wondering whether the elephant might be some sort of like protector of the plants
Oh,
growing, like a sort of
interesting.
guardian figure. But yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and this analogy to, people that are out trying to save urban trees, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Who else do we have here? Yeah, Maggie.
I am sitting here I feel like I have no problem putting the elephant into my story, which is funny because you'd think that might be the hardest element to bring into the story. But, and again, I'm trying to be kind to myself, because I don't think I've never felt that I've succeeded. When I look back to school days and we had to do creative writing and things like that, I always felt I was rubbish at it. I always felt that I was bottom of the class in terms of other people's stories when they told them were so much more exciting and interesting. So coming on your session today was really stepping out of my comfort zone for me, if you like. It was a challenge to me. I was intrigued, but it was also a challenge because I'm feeling slightly intimidated by the sort of whole creative aspect of it. I was thinking in terms of where I'm thinking of, I'm trying to protect trees. And so I was thinking along the lines of the elephant would help me in persuading people to befriend the trees and protect them. And I was thinking of using old photographs and comparing the kind of then and now elements of the place
Mm,
to show people how much we've lost, and yet instill a sort of sense of possibility and hope that we could get it back if we all just came together and worked together rather than working separately or antagonistically.
hmm.
So that's sort of what's going around in my head
Yeah, okay.
in a very jumbled up way.
No, I understand. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it is a bit daunting, right? This is, we're putting ourselves out there, and I think that that's good, and that's why we're doing this, right? This is okay. Um, and I mean, if you really don't like it, then it's not a big deal. We don't put it on the map. But I would like you to, to really think about that. You can do something like this. I think that this is um, perhaps an opportunity to, yeah, not only to challenge yourself, but to sort of overcome if there's any insecurities there. And again, I'm not forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. Okay, so I think maybe what we'll do is I'm just going to spend, I think we have about 10 minutes left. Is that right, Andrew? Oh, you're muted. 10 minutes? Okay, so 10 minutes. So I think what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you the way that you can communicate with me. Now, what I would like to do is be able to put some of these entries onto the map during the festival. I think that would be great. On the website, I can, on the Urban Tree Festival Elephant Adventure website, I can add some of these entries if you want, to give people a sense of what we've created. Um, but I think by the end of the festival, I would like to have some of those markers on that map with your works on it. And it would take me maybe 2 days, 3 days to be able to do that. So and that would be the 25th. So say by the 21st might be something. So that's a better part of a week, I guess. But I do recommend go to your tree, go find that place, just sit there and take it in for a bit, and then begin to imagine, well, all of a sudden there's this elephant that comes into the scene, and what that would mean. And I think that because you're in that place, it may open things up a bit because you're actually there. There is an importance of that place that, yeah, that's already there. You just may not necessarily know why. But that may facilitate the introduction of the elephant and why it's there. So, okay, so I'm just going to show you. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm available to be contacted throughout the course of the festival until the very end if you would like to submit something and work on something. And the best way to do that would be to reach me on WhatsApp. So it's international, it's free. Does everybody use WhatsApp, or does anybody not use WhatsApp? Okay, so Maggie, you don't use WhatsApp. So email is fine. If we can correspond that way. Uh and sorry, Martha and Christina, you use WhatsApp? Okay, so on the sheet that I've sent, as long as you all have it, I'll actually just screen share so I can show you. Christina you don't have it? Okay, Andrew will get it to you for sure. But I'll just show you what you will see on it. At the end of it, you will see that there are ways that you can use WhatsApp so you push this, you go to your settings in WhatsApp down here, you push this button, and then this pops up. So your WhatsApp content appears in a QR code. But more importantly, this is my QR code for my WhatsApp content. So you go to push your scan button, and then you just scan this actual picture right here. And then it will directly, without sharing phone numbers or anything, it will directly make me a contact in your WhatsApp. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's as easy as that, basically. And so WhatsApp's great because we can have conversations about this, about your story, how engaged. So basically, however engaged you are, I will equal that because I like talking about this stuff, and I can definitely say that if you want, I will be there for support. So then we also have sort of how to share your location. Um, does anybody not know how to get a GPS location from a Google map or Apple map? Here, you guys can turn your audio on. There's only a few of us here, so. Sorry, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna stop this here. Sorry, Christina, you were, I didn't hear you. Were you saying? You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I think I do. I've never had to really do it. I always usually have my location off, but I think it's probably straightforward. And I'll probably do something in Vauxhall Park, a tree in Vauxhall Park.
Yeah, if this is not the location that you can actually get to, that's fine as well. Give me your best approximate location. Like you can access Google Maps via the internet and you can zoom in, and using satellite view, you can get a pretty good sense of where, if it's a big enough tree, you will be able to find it.
Yeah.
And you can just put a little pin there if you're using Google Maps. And then from that little red drop pin, you click on that, and then that gives you information to the GPS location. And so that's the screenshot that you can send me in your email with your submission or your questions or whatever it is, or in the WhatsApp chat. Just send that to me that way. And Apple, I think, is even easier to use. Yeah, you just need to push on your little blue spot where you're at, and then instantaneously the location GPS pops up. So it's really quite easy. Which again you can do for wherever you are or wherever you want to be. So we have 5 more minutes. Is there any questions or concerns or general impressions?
Is there an example somewhere that we can engage with, just to give us
Well,
a
yeah. There's 2 other organizations that have done this. However, they're worked into these other types of location-based projects, and so they haven't been launched yet, and so
Right.
they're not up. So at this point I would say no. I mean, I have a few elephant stories that I could put up there. I could send you one, for instance. It's 7 minutes. It was for a different type of activity, but I could definitely send that if you'd like to hear something. Yeah,
I
how to incorporate an
really
elephant into a story. So this random story.
think that would be really helpful, David, just because at the moment I feel like everything's like, and I would just like to be able to, I don't know, it feels a bit overwhelming at the moment, and I'm very, very
Yeah.
keen to engage with this and do it, but just, and I don't want to copy anything, but just to get a sense of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of, it's like a new concept. So just kind of like taking that on board, and then it would be really good to have a few kind of just grounded reference points of other people what other people might have,
Yeah, okay, so I can tell you
Yeah,
right
well
off of the
put,
bat
well
that
put.
the way that they've used the elephant as the idea of the elephant in the room, that's a very popular one. Basically bringing to light things that we are not readily talking about. And especially under the situations, I don't know what it's like in your respective countries, but there's an awful lot of confusion over the pandemic and the way that we're reacting to it, the way that our government is reacting to it, so on and so forth. And it also seems like there's just stuff that they don't want to talk about. So some people have said, okay, well, I'm going to take the elephant and put them into this post-apocalyptic type world where everything has sort of broken down, and really try to highlight the hidden aspects. Some have used this notion of the hidden, right? The elephant as like uncovering the hidden. in nature. So it's been strictly sort of like ecologically oriented. All of a sudden, this elephant, gets scattered and runs away. And then you get closer and you find out it was this particular type of fungus that it was munching on. And because it was in this area that it was not used to being in, it didn't understand that that was the case. And so, there's various ways that you can use the elephant, um, metaphorically, but it doesn't even have to be metaphorical. It could just be this escaped elephant from the zoo. You don't have to write a backstory on where this elephant came from. It really is just about being greeted by this elephant and then having the elephant sort of move on, and somehow you're influenced by it. So it's not, and it doesn't even have to be much. It could be like, well, what could be going through your mind as you're imagining? So you're sitting there, staring at a tree. Doesn't have to be the tree we're talking about, whatever. And then just actively imagine this elephant. Like, how does that make you feel? Just tell me or tell us about that. How does that make you feel in relation to the fact that, like, you haven't seen any other humans in a very long time? I don't know about you guys, but, other than my family, my partner and my daughter, who I'm sure are very, very sick of me, whenever I see someone that I'm able to talk to, I just like latch on to them, and I just like talk their ear off, because I've not talked to anyone substantial outside of my sphere. So maybe that elephant is just someone you end up like basically talking to and has no idea what you're saying, but it doesn't matter. you know I don't know, is that helpful? Is that helpful a bit? All right, Martha, what are you thinking?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, but it's an interesting idea, and I feel like it's a good way of engaging people with sort of the local wildlife that they might not notice otherwise.
Okay, so you're taking sort of more of the ecological approach, like let's show people maybe something that they don't see. Yeah, and I really like that, this idea of, spurting out through the pavement, right? The human edifice and nature is still going to persevere in some sort of way, right?
Sorry, David, I'm going to have to intercede. I'm really sorry,
Yeah,
folks, but
it's
we have
understandable.
we have another event coming up at 4 o'clock, and the people who are setting that up have to have a few minutes to do that, and it's going to run off this Zoom. So
That's
I need to
fine.
close this event before the next event comes up. So I hope you'll forgive me, but I have to kind of interject and ask David just to bring it to a close straight away.
Absolutely.
Can I just say, were we meant to get an email? Because I haven't got an email just to say.
Not yet. I'm about to.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. That's fine. Sorry, I'm like adding to your stress loads. I was just like, before you go.
I will send you an email in the next 45 minutes.
No, it can be whenever. Don't worry. I was just like saying,
okay,
in case it was meant to have already come. Yeah, that was that.
No, okay. Well,
Sorry.
a big thank you to David, and I'm really sorry to end it like this, but I have to cut us off, as they say.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, Andrew. And folks, yes, if you have any questions, just let me know. Email, WhatsApp again is the easiest, but email is definitely fine. And yeah, I hope that you take on this challenge and see what comes out of it. Even it doesn't have to go on the map, but even just for yourself, I think that it's just fun, and it's just something to do if things are not going as well as you think they could. So thank you very much. And yeah, thank you for coming to this session.